Business Development Initiative. Specifically, you're going to learn how we assist entrepreneurs to have the capital to start and grow a business by leveraging business credit. Let's start with a few big picture items. Let's understand a little bit more about our 501c3 nonprofit. Again, it's called the Business Credit Literacy Initiative, BCLI for short. We provide two different programs to assist entrepreneurs in having the capital to start and grow businesses. The first of which is what we're going to be talking about in this webinar, is the Small Business Development Initiative Business Credit Building Program. And that's where we're focused on building business credit that provides a minimum of $100,000 of business credit and funding. So we'll spend quite a bit of time talking about that. The other program, which is very valuable but not the subject of this webinar, is the Go Public program. So in the Go Public program, we're focusing on attracting capital from investors. So it's through equity rather than through credit and debt. The Go Public program works with for-profit and non-for-profit entities. Let's define the problem. Statistics show that there are over 28 million small businesses nationally and hundreds of thousands more that form each year. And according to the United States Small Business Administration, the SBA, they've stated that the number one constraint that entrepreneurs report is inadequate access to capital. They don't have the money that they need to start and grow their businesses, the money that they need to reach their potential. Well, what we found on the third bullet there is very few small business owners understand how to leverage business credit. Business credit is different than personal credit, and we'll talk about that here in just a slide or two. Furthermore, most small businesses really aren't business credit ready. Because you see, there's a difference between saying, oh yes, I want that $100,000 of business credit versus really being ready, eligible, positioned for it. So we're going to talk about how we help assess that and how we help small businesses accomplish that. And frankly, the existing resources, there's many different types of organizations and lenders and banks and credit unions and SBA lenders and so forth that are out there, but the need still exists. There's a huge gap between all the different resources that's available and the number of entrepreneurs that are struggling or not able to meet their potential because of inadequate access to capital. So the importance of business credit. What we found is that the vast majority of small business owners do not understand business credit. You know, maybe they've heard of it, maybe they desire it, but they don't understand it. And as I mentioned a moment ago, business credit is much different than personal credit. It's based upon the EIN, sometimes called the TIN, tax identification number, of the business, not based upon the social security number, the SSN, of the owner or owners. It doesn't require personal guarantees when it's done correctly. Businesses can get much more in credit, 10 to 100 times as much as an individual can. So if we're looking for more funds to start or grow a business, business credit can provide much more of that than what personal credit can. Thirdly, it also separates the liability away from the owner. It's available regardless of the creditworthiness of the owner or owners. And the bottom line is that by building the business credit profile of a business, it literally increases the valuation of that business. It becomes an intangible asset. Now let's dig into the specifics of the SBDI Business Credit Building Program. It's a free grant-funded program. We first started off in it last year in 2016, helped dozens and dozens of clients, but learned a fair amount along the way. One of the things that we've learned, and it's now part of version 2.0, if you will, is that before we enroll someone in that free grant-funded business credit building program, we need to make sure that they're business credit ready. Because if they're not, it's not going to work. So what you see there in the second bullet is it's a two-step process. First, we're going to evaluate the business to see if they're business credit ready. and we'll talk about how that works in a moment. And then secondly, we're going to build the business credit with a $100,000 guarantee that I mentioned earlier. So the guarantee is at least $100,000 of business credit and funding for participating as long as you go through the program. Now, if you say, well, that's not enough, I need vastly more than that for my company to reach its potential, you probably need to pause and maybe consider our Go Public program that's equity-based, based upon investors, because it's going to be difficult to, in the short term, get more than maybe $120,000, $150,000 of business credit. And again, some of you may say, well, that sounds really great, I'll take that, but it just depends upon your business plan and your needs. We have a client that we're working on a project that's $13 million. Obviously, that's a Go Public program. You're not going to get that much in business credit in the near future. So what are the qualifications for a business to participate? Well, as I mentioned earlier, they can be for-profit or non-for-profit. That's not a prerequisite. It doesn't matter of their location, their industry, or even time in business. As the sub-bullet says, it can be a pre-launch business, meaning a business that hasn't even started yet. They're welcome to participate, and we can help them through this from even step one. Now, while it's not a prerequisite to already have a corporation, we are going to need to either have one or create one, because you can't build business credit for a sole proprietorship or a partnership. It needs to be an LLC, a C Corp, S Corp, or as I mentioned, a nonprofit. So, in clarity, it's fine for us to begin working with an entrepreneur that does not yet have an LLC or a corporation, but we all need to recognize that's one of the steps that does need to be completed to be able to be business credit ready. Now, normally there's a $2,500 cost to go through the business credit readiness review. It's a fairly time-intensive process. However, we have grant funding to cover some or even most of that amount, so don't be worried about the dollar amount. Regardless of how much grant funding your business should qualify, the balance of it we can almost always get financed. So the goal is to be a $0 out-of-pocket program. Now, what's really neat about this is, let's say that the grant covers $1,500, for example. So that leaves $1,000 responsibility to your organization. We usually can get financing for that, so there's no out-of-pocket, and then that financing is reporting to your business credit profile as a trade line. So it really serves a dual purpose. Keeps you from having money out of pocket and can be a valuable new trade line on your business credit profile. So for clarification, the business credit building program is 100% covered by the grant. There's no cost, and the business credit readiness review is partially covered. The exact amount of coverage will be determined, as I'll describe in a few minutes, based upon your application and our committee review of your application. So you might ask, well, I just want that $100,000. Why do I have to jump through this step to determine if I'm business credit readiness ready or not? Well, it doesn't make sense to try to start building the business credit profile of an entity if it's not truly ready. It won't work. Now, there's a variety of things that we found that are necessary, but for example, we already mentioned it has to be a corporation or an LLC. It can't be a sole proprietorship or a partnership. The business has to have an EIN, and that's free and easy to get, and we can show you how to do that in a matter of 3 minutes. We need to have a business bank account open. There's a whole list that we go through and review and confirm, and it's not that any business would be restricted from being able to do all these things. It's always attainable, but we need to make sure that these prerequisite steps are completed before we attempt to start building business credit, or it won't work, or it won't work nearly as successfully. So it's really crucial. It's a prerequisite. So we're going to do the business credit readiness review first. Once we pass that, we'll talk about that quantifiably here in a moment, then we're able to get into the free grant-funded business credit program. Now, the question often comes up, well, I don't know if I like this. I know that there's a grant that's going to help cover part of that 2,500, but I don't know how much. I don't know if I want to participate or not. Well, of course, you need to have clarity of what your out-of-pocket cost would be, if any. But here in the second bullet, you see, we start by you submitting an online application. There's no cost, no obligation, but that allows our committee to look at your business and your structure and where you're at, what you're wanting to accomplish, and that's part of the criteria that goes into how much grant funding that would be offered to you. And based upon the grant funding allocation, you could accept or reject, so that would always be your choice. But even if the grant's not paying 100%, which it often won't, because frankly there's some benefit of having the client having some skin in the game, they're more likely to stick with it. But the point is, even if the grant doesn't cover all of it for the business credit readiness review, we can almost always arrange financing for the balance so it doesn't require out-of-pocket cost. And as I mentioned before, when it works ideally, that financing is a trade line that starts reporting your business credit profile, which helps accelerate the process. Now you might ask, well, what happens if I'm not business credit ready? I go through this and I'm told that I'm not ready to enroll in the free grant-funded business credit building program. What then? Well, the first bullet just reiterates, if you are ready, we can extend the offer to you and get started. The business credit building program is a $6,000 value. It is entirely covered through the grant funding. You won't have to pay $5,000, $4,000. You won't have to pay $1. The business credit building program is completely covered by the grant. Now, the topic of this slide here, though, is the second bullet. If you're not business credit ready, then what? Well, we're going to generate a report for you that lets you know what your score is. It's a 100-point scale. You don't have to be perfect to move forward, but we need to be at least at a score of 92 or higher. And if you're lower than a 92, we're going to be able to work with you at no cost to address the issues that need to be remedied so you are qualified to move forward. So you can't lose. You're already qualified. We've confirmed that and we're ready to move forward. Or if not, we'll work with you to get you there. Now, once we're into the business credit building process, it's important because we'll have some clients say, okay, I'd like to get that $100,000 tomorrow. Well, it doesn't work that way. Unless business credit profile is so strong that we can literally go out and get $100,000 worth of funding immediately, we're going to have to go through a building process. That's the normal circumstance. So once you're enrolled, we're going to follow our proven curriculum. We're going to open trade lines that are opened under the EIN of your business versus a social security number of the owner or owners that's reported to the Business Credit Bureau. So there's an art to it, right? It needs to be the right type of trade lines that report correctly. And we usually will start with some net 30 accounts and then get into the revolving accounts that can be like MasterCard, American Express, and so forth. And then we get into the straight out lines of credit. Along the way, there's a few ways to kind of tweak that and accelerate it. Along the way, we can do business car leases or business truck leases and so forth. But the bottom line is it's a sequential process that we go through that works every time. And that's why we can guarantee the $100,000 outcome. It will work, and we'll start to see success in the first month, often in the first 15 days. We have a client that we were working with this month, and she actually received $82,500, if I have that number correct, in her first month. So it can be a dramatic kind of sprint out of the gates. Oftentimes, it's more sequential and takes a while to ramp up. You might ask, well, what are the client's responsibilities? Well, first, we're going to go through the business credit readiness review and make sure that you can illustrate that you're business credit ready with a score of 92 or higher on the 100-point scale. So that's number one. Number two, we're going to go ahead then and extend an offer at no cost. It's free, it's grant funded, to enroll in the business credit building program. Each month, we're going to essentially have a reporting of, did you accomplish last month what we asked you to do? And if so, here's what's on tap for the upcoming month. So it's kind of a month at a time. What did we accomplish this month? Okay, then if that's the case, what are we going to do next month? It's not a time-intensive process for the participants, so don't worry about that. Obviously, another client responsibility is that you need to pay your bills on time, because adding new positive payment history to your business credit profile is good. Adding negative additional entries is bad. So we want to add positive, and that's done by opening the right trade lines and paying those bills on time. The last client responsibility is that we ask you to stick with the program until we reach the goal of $100,000. And again, hypothetically, it could occur in as quick as 1 month, but typically it will take more than a month. It could take up to a year, and if we don't accomplish it in a year, we'll continue to assist you at no charge. Now, we know the sooner the better from your perspective, respect that, but the bottom line is we're grant funded, we're measuring outcomes, and so we do ask you to stick with it. It used to be in kind of our version 1.0, we set it up as a 12-month program, and people didn't really like that because we were usually accomplishing the goal long before that. So now in version 2.0, once we've reached the 100,000, you can kind of graduate out of the program. But if we're not to that goal yet, we ask you to continue to work with it, because we need to measure outcomes, and that's how we earn and sustain our grant funding. Now, this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but the question often comes up, well, what's my total cost? What's this going to cost me? Because you're a nonprofit, right? This should be free. And you always, the Girl Scouts are nonprofits too, but you can't go grab the Thin Mints off their table and say, aha, you're a nonprofit, your cookies are free. So we do have full grant funding on the business credit building. We've talked about that. We're going to be able to offer you partial grant funding on the business credit readiness review. But the question here is, well, what's my total cost? Well, remember, this is business credit. And so just because a business credit line, let's say a trade line for $25,000 is part of this, it's opened. That doesn't mean you have to go spend $25,000. But if you do spend $25,000, then that's your bill to pay. There's not a magic money tree somewhere that's going to pay your bills for you. So that's why we kind of just hit it straight on the head on the nail here, the nail on the head here on the first bullet. Well, if you plan on getting $100,000 of business credit and funding and using $100,000, then you would expect your total cost to be about $100,000, right? Because it's a bill you have to pay back. We are grant funded, but that does not mean, which is not the case, we're not giving out grant money. We're using the grant money to be able to provide the business credit building program for free and to greatly subsidize the readiness review. Now, if you say, well, this isn't what I thought, I don't want to take on $100,000 of debt, well, then you may want to consider again the Go Public program, because that uses equity-based capital investors that you don't have to pay back. Now, they're going to expect a sharing of future profits. That's kind of the way it works. But just depending upon what your perspective is, we've got both programs that can assist. So, bottom bullet here. While we have grant funding to eliminate the cost of the business credit building program, you have to pay your own bills. And just one more simple example. So let's say we work together and you end up having an American Express business card that has a $35,000 credit limit. That's not unreasonable at all. You go out and take your favorite client or best prospect to dinner, a great steak dinner or great salad, whatever it is your preference. When that American Express bill comes in a month, it's your bill to pay. So again, that may seem kind of obvious, but we'll have folks that say, well, what's my total cost going to be? This is free, right? Totally free. Well, no, with business credit, you're responsible for paying the bills that you incur. You control what bills you incur, but you have to pay the bills. If you don't want to pay back bills, then we need to look at the Go Public program, which is, again, from investors that you don't have to pay back. They just share in future profits. You might ask, well, what kind of customer service can I expect? And certainly in our version 2.0, we've strengthened that as well from what we did in our first year, as we're kind of getting our legs under us in 2016. We have a new director of business credit programming who's available to speak with you by appointment regarding any questions or concerns. Of course, you can always email if you'd rather do that. Once you're deemed business credit ready, it's a fairly straightforward process. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to have a set of tasks to do each month, the next steps. We do that, and then we have a new set the following month. So it's going to be very clear and in writing and understood what needs to be done. You provide us the feedback. Did you do that from last month? If so, we have a new set of tasks this month. If not, we need to take care of that. Our office, which I'll give you our address here in a minute. If you'd like to come meet in person, we're happy to schedule a time that's mutually convenient to do that as well. So in summary, the Business Credit Building Program is an economic development engine, right? We're here to help start and grow small businesses, to create jobs, strengthen communities, and improve lives. It's a two-step process. Very important to understand that. First, we're going to make sure that your business credit readiness, that you're ready for business credit. And then secondly, then we'll enroll you in the free grant-funded program to build your business credit. It doesn't matter on your location, your industry, or stage of business. You can already be in business or even pre-launch. We talked about it can be for a for-profit or nonprofit. Doesn't work with sole proprietorships or partnerships, but that doesn't mean that you can't start when you're in that state, and we can help you either become a corporation or an LLC. And ultimately, we've got guaranteed results. You know it's going to be worth your time, and it's not real time intensive, but guaranteed results, a minimum of $100,000 for every participant. Well, what happens now? What we need to do is determine if you qualify and how much grant funding you're eligible for. So here on the final slide of the presentation, there's a hyperlink, but essentially if you go to our website, businesscreditliteracy.org, there's only a few pages on the website, and one of which is the Small Business Development Initiative, and you're able to click on that, and it's going to give you some additional information and an application link, and you'll go through that application link, no cost, no obligation. That gives us the data set that our committee needs to review and decide how much grant funding we're going to offer to you for the Business Credit Readiness Review. And if you accept that, then we'll go ahead and get started. If you have questions, of course, we're here. You see our address, you see our phone number, you see our email address, and of course our website. So thank you so much for your interest in the SBDI Business Credit Building Program. I hope over the past 20-25 minutes that you've developed a thorough understanding of how it works and how it could benefit you. We certainly look forward to working with you in the near future. Thank you and have a great day.